We've sent France 24's Clovis Casali to the Élysée Palace here in Paris. That's Emmanuel Macron's official residence. Clovis, this must surely be a building that's now a hive of activity as officials there race to deal with this news and, of course, find out who else has come into contact with the president. What's the very latest?
Absolutely. The Élysée Palace as careful as possible, cautious, and they released this statement this morning saying the French president had tested positive for COVID-19. A PCR test was conducted after he showed first symptoms during the night. What the Élysée does say is that Emmanuel Macron will be continuing to conduct his duties remotely. Therefore, he will not, though he will continue to work, but from home, and he will self-isolate, and so will the French Prime Minister, Jean Castex. He will self-isolate also after coming in contact with the French president. Of course, the two men working hand in hand during this pandemic more than ever. So Jean Castex is asymptomatic, but he does self-isolate because he's been in contact with the French president. The Prime Minister, who was supposed to go to the French Senate this afternoon to unveil, to explain a bit more the details around the vaccine strategy of the French state, those much needed vaccines coming in the next few weeks, the next few months, millions, of course, to be delivered to France for the French people. The First Lady, Brigitte Macron, has showed no symptoms for the time being, but a test was planned for this morning. Presumably that PCR test was conducted, and Brigitte Macron had been tested regularly over the past few weeks, notably on December 15th, and she was negative at the time. It appears that the cabinet members here in France, the ministers, will not need to self-isolate because they did meet with the French president, but were respecting all the social distancing, the wearing masks, all the measures necessary to remain safe. But the situation, of course, taken very seriously here at the Élysée Palace. One direct consequence, we know that the French President Emmanuel Macron will not be heading to Lebanon in a few days. A trip planned for December 22nd, following, of course, the double blast at the port of Beirut. Lebanon, a country close to the heart of the French president. He was one of the first leaders to head there after the explosion. He was supposed to head there again just before Christmas to show his support in these difficult times for Lebanon. Well, that trip is cancelled, and we can imagine that other trips, other assignments, duties will be cancelled. But as the Élysée Palace says, the French president is still very much in charge. He will just be conducting his duties remotely.
And Clovis, we shouldn't, of course, forget that Macron is not the first global head of state to have tested positive for COVID-19.
Indeed, however careful he was, he tested positive, and other heads of state across the world were also tested positive. Remember Donald Trump during the US presidential campaign. He was positive for COVID-19. He got an experimental, one of the latest treatments against COVID-19, and he appeared to be cured pretty quickly because he still managed to continue to campaign, run in this hotly contested election in the following days, the following weeks. And then you also had Boris Johnson, the British Prime Minister. Remember, he was tested positive for COVID-19. He was also admitted in intensive care in hospital. His situation deemed extremely serious at the time. But worth pointing out, of course, that though the virus can hit anyone, it also affects more particularly and in a more harsh way people depending on their health conditions, their weight, and President Emmanuel Macron, being young and in good physical condition, does not seem to be in that category of people at risk. But of course, his situation taken very carefully, cautiously. We can imagine his team of doctors around him making sure that he gets all the treatment he needs. And of course, Emmanuel Macron in self-isolation for the time being after being tested positive for COVID-19. His wife, Brigitte Macron, not positive, and the Prime Minister, Jean Castex, not positive either. that he was in close contact with the French president in recent days.
Clovis Casali, our reporter there in the streets near the Élysée Palace in central Paris. Thank you very much.